It's no secret our relationship with the United States has reached historic lows since Donald Trump took office. Now, new research shows how deeply that's being felt in this country. An Angus Reid poll of around 1,600 Canadians found that almost 80% were more fearful than hopeful about the future. A similar poll in the United States found more than half of the respondents felt the same. Meanwhile, 2/3 of Canadians gave Trump an F for his first year. I think that's the grade. Perhaps unsurprising given what he said about this country and our allies. We're now joined by Shachi Kurl, the president of the Angus Reid Institute. When I said the F was the grade, I noticed that you nodded yes.
Yes.
Could represent other things too for people.
Very true. We also asked them to use other words to express their feelings when they talk about that first term. Words like chaotic, corrupt, demoralizing, a lot of those types of words come to mind from the Canadian mindset. And
talk a little bit more about the concerns that you saw in the survey results that the Canadians have.
Look, you know, that 80%, 4 in 5, who say they are worried about the year ahead vis-a-vis this relationship. You know, from their perspective, this has been 15 months of uncertainty, of yo-yoing around trade and tariffs, but it's also something about a sense of indignation and betrayal. And when I use those words, again, those are words that Canadians have used themselves in previous polls, talking about how they feel about all of this. But you know, Ian, there's always a political divide on this front. Mm-hmm. And what we note is that past Conservative voters, much more likely, and I have to be really clear here, it's not a majority of them, but indeed 36% of past Conservative voters give Trump either an A or a B in terms of his first year. And that is higher than any other party supporter.
Okay, so let's go back over that for a second. So people who have identified as having voted for the Conservatives in the past, the percentage that actually give Trump an A is what?
The percentage that give him an A or a B represents about 1/3 of Conservative voters overall. Now, that does point out then that 2/3 are not giving him an A or a B, but that is much higher than past Liberal voters, way higher than past Bloc voters, much higher than past NDP voters.
Yeah, I mean, two things come to mind when I hear that number besides surprise, is that, first of all, like, I've heard so many people who identify as Conservatives who have just grown tired of Donald Trump, of the things that he said. Well, there's so many. I'm not even going to start listing all the things he said. But that percentage still give him an A among Conservative supporters in Canada. The other thing it makes me think is it helps explain a bit of a tightrope that Poilievre has to walk, right?
Absolutely. When we think about this weekend coming up and we think about the reasons going back over the last year of why he just failed to resonate. Like, hey, we're into the NFL playoffs. He just couldn't get the ball into the end zone at the last minute. It had to do with an unwillingness on part of Poilievre to denounce Trump in really full-throated, you know, we use that phrase, elbows up terms. The reason he does that is because of that 1/3 of his base, which is a really significant number that he can't afford to lose. He can't afford to have them going over to the People's Party or starting their own party. So I think you used the word tightrope. He is trying to keep a balance between acknowledging how angry and upset Canadians feel, and at the same time keeping his base, some of whom are very strong Trump supporters, on side.
We have 1 minute left. What about what the people you polled said about how Carney is handling Donald Trump?
Again, you do see that political divide on that front. First of all, the majority do say that they think that Carney's doing a good job handling Trump. And I think, but both based on this poll and polls we've done in the past, we also see an acknowledgement that there's only so much any prime minister, premier, or leader can do when you're dealing with the most unpredictable and chaotic world leader we've had in decades, in a generation at least. So that is something that people are giving Carney a measure of congrats or kudos and attaboy. And we also see that in terms of his approval numbers jumped 8 points right after that Davos speech. So about 60% say that they approve of him. Again, it's the Conservative voters who have a segment who are more likely to say, no, he's not doing this. We should actually be, doing more to appease or do what Trump says. And that speaks very clearly to their ideology.
As always, the numbers and the analysis of the numbers, fascinating. Shachi Kurl, thank you very much.
Ian, thanks.